Ho, 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 ho. Welcome to It's Always Sunny in Cherbourg. I still don't know how to pronounce that. It's always sunny in
It,
Paris.
I
It's
think it is
always
Cherbourg.
sunny
Cherbourg.
in
I heard the people in the movie
ho,
say
ho,
Cherbourg,
ho.
but whatever.
Cherbourg. Yeah, Cherbourg. It's always sunny in Sherbet. I love the ice cream.
Cherbourg is pretty based.
Je m'appelle Red Dramart. Je m'appelle Rouge Dramart.
Enchanté. My name is Patrick.
I am Lugia. I don't know a lick of French, so I'm not even gonna try.
I took French for several years in school, and I have picked up damn near nothing. I can read some, I guess, a little, but yeah. Anyway, today we're gonna be talking about Jacques Demy, his film, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, part of his cinematic universe. Yes, that is a thing. One of the characters in here was one of the main characters in a different movie. No connection. He just put the character from a different movie in this. How does that make you feel?
So we have
I've never.
the Triforce. We have the Kevin Smith cinematic universe.
It's funny. We have talked about two cinematic universes before we've talked about a single
The Channel
MCU.
Awesome cinematic universe. Don't forget that.
That's not well. That's not really cinematic universe. That's. But yeah, sure, whatever.
You ask me how
Um.
I feel. I don't know because I don't think I've ever made a cinematic universe before. I could be wrong, but last I checked, I didn't.
Anyway, a bunch of deaths happened this week. Henry Kissinger died. Many people are rejoicing, which already kind of tells you the kind of life he lived. But yeah, so Henry Kissinger was arguably one of the most important political figures of the 20th century. So the reason many people are rejoicing is just because he did some controversial decisions that he was responsible for during the Nixon administration that kind of messed up a couple countries. So many people have accused him of being a war criminal. He lived to 100, which is something. He has generally outlived all of his critics. He not only outlived the guy who wrote his obituary, but he outlived the guy who wrote the obituary of the guy who wrote his obituary. Only the good die young. Anyway, Norman Lear passed away too. Norman Lear is a much less controversial figure. He's arguably one of the first moguls of TV, like in terms of like making TV shows, kind of like how Chuck Lorre is responsible for a lot of big shows nowadays. Norman Lear was. Norman Lear though is a lot better than Chuck Lorre, because Chuck Lorre made The Big Bang Theory, and Norman Lear made All in the Family, which is probably the most important show of the '70s, sitcom wise, next to MASH. It's All in the Family and MASH. Those are it. He also made Sanford and Sons, Good Times, The Jeffersons. So he actually was very progressive because the last three shows I mentioned were all predominantly black casts. Rest in peace. He passed away at 101. Damn, both the people lived past 100. It's fucking crazy. Macaulay Culkin got the Walk of Fame. Fitting that he got it during the holiday season, because you know.
I heard
Is
that. I
he?
heard that
Yeah.
Zac Efron's also. I heard that Zac Efron's also getting us a star.
Congrats, Macaulay. You're the only person on the Walk of Fame that's a member of Red Letter Media and was also appeared on The Angry Video Game Nerd.
Is Macaulay Culkin like as Kevin McAllister his most iconic role?
Yeah, duh.
Okay, because I didn't know if like he played in anything else that was as significant.
The only other
He's
role I
played in
can
lots
think
of
of.
significant stuff, but it's just Home Alone was like definitely his defining role, and I'd argue his best role just because like he played it so pitch perfect. Because here's the thing, Home Alone is the only good Home Alone movie. It's the only good movie that's tried to be like Home Alone. Home Alone is lightning in a bottle, and I think it's entirely because of Macaulay.
You don't like the second movie?
Well, the second movie is good too, but like it's definitely worse than the first. But I definitely think that Macaulay being the lead is one of the reasons why Home Alone 2 is not the most successful of the attempts to cash in on Home Alone. Home Alone like one is like is though it's like legit lightning in a bottle. I rewatched a little bit of the ending the other day, just out of curiosity, and the slapstick is still really fucking funny. Honestly, Harry and Marv, they could be like a great comedy duo like Laurel and Hardy. It's kind of a shame that what's Daniel Stern. Yeah, Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci didn't make more movies together. But yeah. In terms of like other significant roles,
The only other
is
role I
it
think of when I think of Macaulay Culkin is Richie Rich. I've never seen that movie, but I know he's the main character.
I think of Uncle Buck just because that's another John Hughes movie and he was pretty good in that. I also know The Good Son and The Page Master just because I've heard a lot of people mention The Good Son before, and I know The Page Master because of Nostalgia Critic. And nowadays, people know him as that guy that shows up in Red Letter Media sometimes. My last bit of news is the GTA 6 trailer came out. I don't think it really looks that good, but it's a significant event, being that GTA is like the most popular video game.
GTA 5 came out like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You ever think about how the 2000s had like so many GTA games, and then
Yeah, because there
after
was
5 came
3 and then
out,
Vice City and then San Andreas and I think a couple other spin-offs.
I mean, yeah, there were also games before before GTA 3.
Well, no one talks about 1 and 2.
They should. 2 was actually pretty fucking good. Also, those actually came out in the 90s, so never mind. Yeah, so GTA 3 2000 is the first of the 2000s. So yeah. GTA was basically the defining franchise of the 2000s in a sense. You could argue it was in a different time in America because American culture has dramatically changed from 2013 since then. In fact, I'd argue 2014 is like the day, it's sort of the year where culture starts to dramatically change. GTA basically is representative of 2000s culture in a sense because well, one, the 2000s is the edgiest decade. So I wonder if GTA 6 is going to pull punches. I kind of think they will just cuz they've made comments about they made comments that are a bit like contrary to what the previous games would be like, and also like every single person that worked on the first 5 games, all the people that worked on the good GTA games has now left the company. I don't think Dan Houser doesn't work at the company. He's the guy that wrote all the games, so and he's also the head of the company. So it's kind of like making a Metal Gear Solid game without Kojima. Like Dan Houser didn't work on GTA 1, but GTA 1 sucked. Again, I have highly doubts that GTA 5 is going to be good, but even if it is, I mean GTA
You
6
mean
is going to be
six?
good. Yeah, but even if 6 is good, it takes place in Vice City. I'm just going to play Vice City. Vice City is trying to be like Scarface. The new one is trying to be like. Let me explain, I guess, the difference between like old GTA and what this new trailer is kind of giving me vibes. The original GTA was a bunch of British people that loved American culture, wanted to heighten the absurdity of it, and also just throw homage to a bunch of like iconic American films. So like GTA 5 was an homage to Heat and like Goodfellas and stuff. GTA Vice City was a homage to Scarface. San Andreas was a homage to Boys in the Hood and Menace to Society. And Grand Theft Auto 3 was more of like, I guess, a bit more noirish. I don't know. I don't know how much of GTA you guys are familiar with, but would you rather play a game that feels like Scarface or a game that feels like the top results when you Google Florida Man?
Top
Uh,
results when you Google Florida
I'd
Man.
honestly say Scarface.
I'm not too excited for it. Also, I think the graphics look a little weird because it's a bit washed out, and also the story is inspired by Bonnie and Clyde and like The Place Beyond the Pines, which are kind of like serious, not fun movies, and like that works for Red Dead Redemption. GTA is a stupid series. It's incredibly juvenile, and like the whole fun is that it's juvenile. The first thing that everyone does when they boot up GTA is cause a rampage, and the only reason they play the story is so they can get better stuff to cause a rampage. It's not like a intelligent game series, and that's the fun of it. They have Opie and Anthony, which are like a bunch of dumb shock jocks from the 2000s, record like special episodes like in universe that's on the radio. I guess sorry to be a downer. You guys play any of the GTA games?
I
Uh, no. I've played Simpsons Hit and Run. That is the closest I've ever gotten.
I've
It's actually very
sampled
similar.
3. I didn't really play a whole
Okay.
lot of it, but I remember playing it when I was very young at a cousin's house, just for
Yeah.
like maybe 20
I mean, I've
minutes.
seen friends play GTA, but I myself have not had hands-on experience.
All right.
All right, let's switch gears for a second to talk about the wide world of sports. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not really a sports guy. Unless it's the Olympics, I'm not going to actively like sit down and watch sports. But something happened this past week that caught my attention. ESPN commentator Stephen A. Smith on a podcast got a call from somebody, and he had the galls to say that Lightning McQueen is not the GOAT. And his
Yeah.
reasoning why is because he and Strip Weathers both have 7 Piston Cups, so he can't be the GOAT because they're equal. This man completely forgot that Lightning McQueen gave up being the first ever rookie to win the Piston Cup in order to help Strip Weathers after he was crashed. That's got to count for something, right?
Yeah. Wait, Strip Weathers.
Strip Weathers is
I
the king.
thought. Oh, right. Okay. I was thinking. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so let me clarify something. This was a fake interview. This was scripted. This was all planned. But the commitment he has to this bit is honestly so funny to me because he's saying, why?
I
At
saw
one
the
point he's
video.
like,
Yeah. It's just him berating the guy. He's like, "How old are you? 20? 20? Okay, you're a young man. You're still a grown ass man. You're not 7. Why are you talking to me about this
he
shit?"
says, why are we talking about something real? He's like, cars is real to little kids. You're not a little kid. You'd have a point if you were 7, but you're 21. It was just so great. Last bit of news is that Time Magazine has named Taylor Swift as their Person of the Year. And, I mean, Taylor Swift has had quite a good year. I mean, she re-released 2 albums. She's in the middle of the second most successful concert tour in history. And the Eras Tour became the highest grossing concert film in history. And Harvard is going to start teaching a course about her next year.
Wait,
I'd say
what?
she's had it good.
Don't I find
What would they
absolutely
what, Lugia?
wait? What would they
What,
even
Lugia?
teach in a Taylor Swift
There's
course?
Okay,
lyrics?
the Taylor Swift course is about basically the works that inspired her and the connections they have to her music.
So that you can become her?
It's basically like a poetry and literature class that uses Taylor Swift as an extensive reference. Funny guys, there's no better time to be a Swiftie.
Yeah, whatever. The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, directed by Jacques Demy. Oui. Yeah, so he's kind of one of the one of the significant figures of the French New Wave. So I guess this is the first member of the French New Wave that we're talking about. In case you guys don't know, the French New Wave is basically the film movement that completely redefined Hollywood. Or just film in general. It's a bunch of people just kind of pioneered new film techniques, and then it got imported to Hollywood, and that led to New Hollywood, which defined the 70s and led to films like, The Godfather and all that stuff. So yeah, it's arguably like there are films before the French New Wave, and then there are films after the French New Wave. That's how most people define Hollywood. Old Hollywood is everything before the French New Wave, before New Hollywood, and then modern cinema is French New Wave, New Hollywood onward. So, very important fella. What I find interesting about Demy, though, compared to the other filmmakers, is that he still very much drew from old classic Hollywood, where like people like Godard completely just broke the rules. They did something completely different. Truffaut was trying to do something more classy, trying to sort of build upon people like Orson Welles and stuff. Demy decided to actually draw inspiration from studio filmmaking and then kind of just push it. So like, he took stuff like Singing in the Rain and then sort of put a French new wave twist to it, and that's kind of what Umbrellas of Cherbourg are. It's a kind of classic Hollywood romance musical. And yeah. So technically this film is part 2 of a trilogy. It follows up Lola. One of the characters from Lola actually appears in here, which I'll get to when we talk about the plot summary. This is one of those movies like Les Miserables where the entire thing is in song. It's not just like a regular movie and then they break out into song. Just the whole thing is basically one, kind of continuous musical thing. Since the cast were not trained singers, most of the actors' voices were dubbed. Which did you guys notice that?
Yeah.
I did not.
I wasn't sure if you guys would notice it, just because like the entire thing is dubbed, so it's not like you'd notice any like inconsistency or something. And being foreign too, like you probably might not notice any lip syncs because you're kind of paying attention to the subtitles and whatnot. So yeah, but also like they're speaking the same language, so it's not like a typical dub where like you're trying to match like a different language to like the wrong lips. Like they're speaking the same thing. But yeah, So The Umbrellas of Cherbourg was met with critical acclaim. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards and it won the Palme d'Or. It was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film, Best Original Screenplay, Best Original Score, and Best Original Song. And it was later adapted into a stage musical in English, an English language stage musical. I don't know if they ever do a revival of that. I guess check that out. This is probably obvious, but this film was basically the a huge influence on 2016's La La Land, which is
Actually, let me ask: Did Lugia? Did you manage to watch La La Land at all?
Unfortunately, no, I didn't have time, but I
Okay.
assume it approaches its story in a similar way with how everyone sings all the time.
no, not at all.
No, La La
No,
Land is
okay.
not so.
It's
No.
more.
So how
It
are they
takes more
similar?
visual and thematic similarities, I would say, because what
Yeah,
I would
because
say
the
about
narratives are
everyone,
completely different.
yeah, it's the narratives are different. It's just it has the same theme, and ultimately the ending is basically the same. It's just they approach it completely differently. I'll get into that later though. Right now, let me just talk about the story. So the story is broken up into 3 parts. Part one, you basically follow this young love story that's very sweet that tragically gets ended because the male in the situation gets drafted. Part two, we then follow Genevieve, the woman in the situation, who is pregnant with Guy's child, and then she has no idea where Guy is. As far as she knows, she's dead. So ultimately, she has to move on, and she gets married to a man named Roland. Roland first appeared in the 1961 film Lola, where he previously unsuccessfully wooed the title character Lola. So, to all the Lola fans that were upset that Roland was basically the guy in the rom com that doesn't get the girl, don't worry, it eventually kind of worked out.
So he got a redemption arc in another movie?
It's not a redemption arc necessarily. Like as far as I know, he was fine in Lola. It's just you know how like every time you watch the rom com, like say a Nora Ephron movie, it's like Sleepless in Seattle. She gets with Tom Hanks, but she had like a different boyfriend that she leaves for Tom Hanks. That's what I think. Like Roland was like the other guy in the rom com, the person in the triangle that doesn't win. You know.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what happens to the corner of the triangle? Well, you find out here. He steals someone else's woman, and he's still not the lead. He is forever a side character. But yeah. So they marry. Then part three, we see Guy return from war, learns Genevieve is married, and yeah, eventually sort of meets another woman. And it kind of comes together in the film where they have a chance encounter. Guy and Genevieve, they briefly meet. The way I took it is and the ending is probably the part I'm gonna dwell on the most. But there's kind of beautiful moment where they kind of like just see each other again, and then they just depart. They go back to their lives. But like that one moment, just kind of, I think it's kind of perfect. Kind of gives it a sort of bittersweet note to end on. And I like honestly, I was a bit like iffy on the film before, but the ending is kind of what ultimately like made me be like, this is a great film. Yeah, I guess that's my broad thoughts. Obviously it looks beautiful. Probably one of the best looking films I've ever seen in my life. Great sets, and I love how the camera's always constantly moving. This is like very complex blocking. People don't talk about blocking much, but like I feel like the way the actors are positioned is like really strengthens the film. What do you guys think?
I'm curious to hear what Lugia has to say.
All right. So this was definitely unique. When I was first watching this and we got to the scene with the auto shop and Guy leaving, I noticed how everyone was starting on an opening number and like end up and they were singing, like, obviously it's a musical. So I thought, okay, so this is just the opening song. And then they keep
It
singing.
never stops. It never stops.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh,
Oh, you're stuck in a
this is
musical, bud.
this is the whole movie, which it's different. I'm not too keen on having song replace conversations when the songs are conversations, but it's something that I got used to in due time, and you don't really get a whole lot of movies that go for this kind of approach, if at all.
Again, Les Miserables is the only other one I could think of, off the top of my head.
So in that respect, this movie was a lot more pleasant than it ended up wanting to be, but I still liked it.
I thought this movie was okay. It was gentle, it was pleasant, it was an enjoyable watch, but I guess I just expected a bit more narratively, I guess.
It is
Okay,
pretty
so
simple when you break it
This is a,
down.
this is a very straightforward movie, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
I mean, it's also like pretty short. It's 91 minutes, which is 90 minutes is basically the shortest a movie can really be. They make it as short as it possibly can be, but even then, it's still pretty simple and it's mostly just kind of carried by the beautiful vibes and just kind of a emotional hook. And again, as I said too, I thought it was a little bit, flimsy in some ways, and but it wasn't until the ending where I was like, okay, this is really good.
The ending was beautiful. I still think the movie in general is okay.
It was a slow build up to that point, especially because going back to how like songs overtake conversations, a standard conversation is 2 times as long because they're singing it. So the movie's pacing feels a lot slower than it should.
Hot take to all my film bros out there. La La Land is better.
Okay, I'm not the only one.
So I do
So,
like the kind of unique, kind of disparate paths that we see because in La La Land we don't. Okay, let me break down because I actually wrote up some notes for this in regards to the ending, which is and I think the ending is sort of what makes is I think defines both films and sort of why I sort of prefer La La Land. So I think La La Land has one of the best endings in film. Honestly, similar to Umbrellas, I thought like the rest of the movie was like just all right. I will say I like the rest of La La Land more than Umbrellas. It's got a bit more meat to it, and it having dedicated sequences, I think, lends itself better. But yeah, but like it's really mostly just the ending that really sinks it, and they both have similar endings with people once in love having since gone on different paths in lives, meeting again briefly before departing once more. The main difference is, I think, the setup of the previous film completely changes the context behind him, but also, how would I say this? Umbrellas is a very gentle film. Like it's a slow build up, and then it has this kind of delicate, bittersweet ending. Just a very like small known moment that kind of really sticks with you. La La Land is more of like a slow build up to a big crescendo. It's like a big climax. It's this beautiful, extravagant, epic sequence.
and that's funny because I've met many people who don't like La La Land because they feel as soon as it gets going, that's when it ends.
Really, I thought
Yeah,
like La La
I mean,
Land that was like such a perfect climax. Like honestly, I would argue that Denis Villeneuve, Damien Chazelle, outside of Whiplash, I honestly think most of his movies are just okay, but then it just has like the best possible fucking ending you could ever ask for, and that just makes me be like, all right, never mind, this movie's great. Like it's like
because
it's okay, okay ending. Never mind, it's amazing.
dude really knows how to write an ending. Huh.
Yeah, except Whiplash, which is good from the start. Whiplash is his best movie still, in my opinion. So La La Land, it's this big extravagant sequence, and in a sense, it's kind of like Last Temptation of Christ. Where here, because it's understated, you're just kind of left wondering what they're thinking when they see each other, and you see a flash in like their eyes, and you can clearly see that they're thinking about what's happening. Here, you actually do get to see what they're thinking. It's basically almost like this kind of big, what if scenario, this ideal situation, and it's amazing. And then but the reason I actually prefer La La Land isn't just this, because I actually think it being understated, it being this big extravagant, either approach works, and I think both are beautiful. I think Umbrellas is good because it's understated. I don't think it would be better if it was extravagant. But what made me like La La Land more is in Umbrellas they lose touch just due to circumstances, not due to their choice. I think the fact that it was a choice in La La Land makes it more interesting, and also the fact in Umbrellas they both have families, when in La La Land it's a bit more imbalanced. So how would I put this? So in Umbrellas, if there's one criticism I have with the Umbrellas ending is the fact that, well, actually, it's not really criticism because they do mention it. I actually think that adds it. So another detail I liked about the Umbrellas ending is that that's Guy's child, and she's like, "Oh, do you want to see her?" Says no. It's almost like him being like deciding to make like the hard break, choosing his own life rather than trying to, I guess, sort of entangle him. To me, I find like the fact that he made the choice to not see, you know, basically his his daughter to be interesting. And it kind of adds a lot. But anyway, in La La Land, obviously, Mia. So I'm just gonna say their names: Mia and Seb. Mia has a family. Seb doesn't. They're not on equal footing into their lives. Only Mia has a family. So to me, I think there's more meat when Seb imagines what if things were different. Because it's easier to not dwell on and like move on if you have a family, which is why I think what happened in Umbrellas, him like, I got my own life, I got my own family, I'm gonna move on. With I think Seb, I think with him, and I think that's why it's such an extravagant sequence, because it's his fantasy. It's like him really imagining, it was like, fuck, what if it was different? Especially because the reason that Mia and Seb break up is like entirely because of career choices. And Mia, she's a successful actress and she has a family. So I guess in Seb's mind, to me, I was thinking that he was like, that might like fuck you up a little bit because you're like, we broke up because of career, but you're able to have it both. And Seb, he loves his career obviously, but he wasn't able to have it both. He doesn't have a family. So I'm like, that's kind of interesting. I think the fact that there's an imbalance there adds a tension to the ending, which I think is like really strong, and I really like that tension. When Umbrellas, there isn't a tension, but again, that works because it's an understated ending. It's more of like
The
these
ending
people
still
who
hit.
yeah, obviously.
If I can give my piece for a second, because I actually rewatched La La Land as a comparison just for the sake of it. If I have to play the comparison game, I do, like I said, I do like La La Land more, but I will confess my reasoning why is very subjective. Because here's the thing. La La Land is a musical about trying to make it in entertainment while also being a love letter to LA and classic cinema. I'm a guy who loves musicals. I want to make it in entertainment. I love cinema. And a few years ago, I took a vacation to LA. It was like one of the best experiences of my life. So this just hits like certain check boxes for me that really, again, completely subjective, I'm well aware, but it's just a very specific combination that hits me personally.
You like La La Land more because it's live action. Cats don't dance. I'm sorry, I just
Can't
had to
believe
make the joke.
Patrick doesn't like France.
So I've never been to France. I don't have that connection.
Ho ho ho
I mean,
ho. Oui
one
oui.
day I'll to France. But if I can move past the personal experience, I'll just admit I find like the characters in La La Land more compelling. Like I like Mia and Sebastian and their mini conflicts. And like there's just a lot more small details in La La Land and scenes that just stick with me
Yeah.
more. Like the
Here's the
tap
thing.
dancing scene and J.K. Simmons, he's on screen for like 1 minute total. He is like one of the most standout moments in the entire movie.
It's J.K.
Here's the thing.
Simmons.
I
The
know.
entire power of Umbrellas comes from like the first act, and then the rest of the film is us just seeing like them apart. It's the absence. When the power of La La Land comes from the fact that we see these two, their like entire relationship so tight, and then at the end. So they're very
Like
different
like
approaches, but obviously La La Land's gonna stick more because we just follow these characters and their dynamic just so much more.
I can completely understand somebody preferring the gentleness of Umbrellas compared to, the pizzazz of La La Land. But it's just a lot more of La La Land sticks with me personally. Like, again, Umbrellas isn't bad. It's perfectly fine. It's just, I feel like there's more to La La Land. So
Would you
there's more
say
to
La La
stick with
Land's
me,
more
more to think about.
overstimulating?
Um,
No, La La Land's more like I guess conventional.
Putting aside La La Land for a second and to just talk about Umbrellas of Cherbourg, like I said, I think the movie's okay, but the big thing about it that stands out to me, like you said, Red, is the aesthetics and the production design and the costumes and the colors. This movie looks absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, in
Like La
terms
La
of
Land
like
looks great too, but like I don't know, something about Umbrellas of Cherbourg just there's this
Kind of like,
I can't really describe it.
I'd
its
say
colors
like
and sets are
Candy
so
Lake
fucking
with the bright
vibrant.
colors,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but I also just
Yeah.
like really love like the kind of lighting, like the sort of that blue lighting when they're walking. It reminds me of like an MGM musical, but like there's even like a bit more to it because like I love Singing in the Rain, but like even Singing in the Rain doesn't look like this vibrant. Although Singing in the Rain's a beautiful fucking film, but like this one just has like such a colorful palette.
A lot of blues, greens, pinks.
If you like this movie, check out La La Land, check out Babylon, check out the Before trilogy. Actually, it reminds me a bit of the Before trilogy, particularly like the first two, because
That's the Linklater thing, right?
yeah, the Linklater movies. Yeah, it
Okay.
reminds me of the first two movies in the Before trilogy. So yeah, those are my recommendations. Also, I guess obviously
Uh,
check out the other two movies in this trilogy, which I have not seen. I have only seen this one.
I was reminded of. Have you guys heard of a musical called She Loves Me?
No.
I might have. Let me look it up. She Loves
She
Me.
Loves Me is about two department store workers who cannot stand each other, but they are actually each other's secret pen pals, and they absolutely love
Oh,
each other through their words. It kind of reminds me
so
of
you got
that
mail.
ish. I mean, this came out. I mean, She Loves Me first premiered in the '60s, around the same time as Umbrellas of Cherbourg, so it technically predates She's Got Mail. But yeah, sure.
I
This
think
kind of
You've
reminds
Got
me of
Mail
that
is like
because that also has a bit of a Christmas thing, slightly, and the department store setting.
is
It's
this a
also a
play or a
European
movie?
city. It's a musical. It's a stage musical.
Let's see. You've Got Mail is inspired by the play Parfumeur from 1937, a Hungarian play, and
Yes, yeah, that's also She Loves Me is based on that, so makes
okay, so
sense actually.
She Loves Me and You Got Mail are based off the same thing. She's
Hmm.
Got Mail is also based off the 1940 movie and the 1949 film The Shop Around the Corner, duh, and In the Good Old Summertime. Yeah, no shit, it was based off The Shop Around the Corner. Like, what the this is a brand new, unique experience to you, I guess, Lugia.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I've seen musicals before, but not one like this.
Remember, if I ever recommend you something, there's probably going to be a twist that's going to throw you off. So just get used to it.
Okay, well this wasn't as bad
Jeez.
as Nowhere.
This was a very interesting episode because even though this wasn't a double feature, I feel like we talked more about La La Land.
I feel like we actually
Granted,
gave like
also
this.
midnight. So
I'll be
we're
real though,
unhinged.
I'll be real though, I'm actually glad we did talk about La La Land because if we were just talking about Umbrellas of Cherbourg on its own, I would have so little to say,
Speak for
honestly.
yourself. I didn't even see
I,
the movie. This is another fallen angel situation for me.
I probably should have made this a double feature, but oh well.
Eh, it's fine.
I thought it might be able to stand on their own, but when I rewatched Umbrellas, I was like, oh, this is a lot. This makes me think of La La Land way more than I remember. So I was just like, ah, shit. Well, oh well.
Maybe one of these days we'll do La La Land and Lugia can finally understand what the hell we're talking about.
Give it time.
Yes. Yeah, if we do La La Land though, we're probably gonna have to pair it with another movie just so because we
And
can't don't want to just repeat ourselves. Okay, go
speaking of
on.
Lugia, it is your turn.
Alright, so I think it's about time that I get my Christmas pick in.
Mm-hmm.
So I've
Yes.
given it some thought and I've bounced around a couple ideas, and I think I want to settle on this one. And unless I'm mistaken, I think this movie has a couple firsts for the podcast.
By the way, have we ever talked about a French movie before, or is this the first one?
I think this might be the first. I think.
Sacre bleu.
Um,
Okay, go on.
does Rugrats in Paris count?
No, no.
Anyway, as you were, Lugia, as
Alright,
you were.
so the movie in mind is going to be Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, starring Jim Carrey.
Ah,
I don't believe we've talked about a
alright.
movie with Jim Carrey before, and we definitely haven't
We
talked
have
about a Dr.
not.
Seuss movie yet.
And I don't think we've done a
Uh,
Ron Howard either.
Make that 3.
how about
Big over
that?
Triforce.
The first of technically many Dr. Seuss adaptations in live action, also starring Jim Carrey. Because Jim Carrey was also in Horton. Cool. I've never actually seen this movie before.
Really?
Yeah, I never saw The Grinch. Just funny because that's the one people like, and meanwhile I've seen The Cat in the Hat well over a dozen times in my life.
So how do we end this?
Oh mon Dieu! You have mon petit penis. Oi, oui, vey. That's Jewish. I don't know.
Wee baguette.
It's time for me. We're all gonna like run into each other, and we're like, oh, it is you, mon fleur. Farewell. I do not want to talk to my child. Is that my child? Do not let me speak to him. Begone. That is not my son or daughter. I do not remember actually if it was a son or a daughter. Get out. Does the man know that I am the father? This feels like a conversation we should be having. This is a much more important conversation
Wait,
than we are.
we're supposed to be along with the bit.
I have no idea. No, I'm saying like that should have been a longer conversation. It's just like, do you want to see the child? No, and then they leave. It's like, hold up, that's your. There's a lot to discuss here. Your husband should know that that's the dad, right? Like, there's a lot of things going on. You kind of owe your daughter. Whatever. It's a sweet moment. It's nice to see some French appreciation because apparently the Napoleon movie kind of eviscerates their most important historical figure. I just remember we talked about the Joan of Arc movie. That's French. Never mind. We've talked about a French movie before. This is the first time we've heard French people speak in a film, though. Technically.
Is that it? Is that the ending?
I surrender.